we are at week 8 of my Summer with Lisa Kleypas challenge. Not only are we doing Seduce Me at Sunrise, but we are also doing the little known Hathaway's book 2.5, the novella, A Hathaway Wedding, both of which star our favorites Win and Kev. Hi, my name's Bea. Welcome to my channel, Mama Needs to Read Romance, because nobody in this book is going to take the bookmark out of my book at every possible opportunity. Before I get started, I want to let you know in the description below, I have linked the link to the novella, A Hathaway Wedding, which is all about Win and Kev. It's considered book 2.5 in the Hathaway series. So if you need to leave to go read that for yourself, I don't blame you. I will have chapters at the bottom of this video in case you want to go straight to the review for that novella. But otherwise, we're going to be spending most of our time on Seduce Me at Sunrise. That's right, Win and Kev, who have been together since they were, I guess, early teens. They have loved each other pretty much from the first instant, but they have fought their love with everything they have, and it is agony for both of them. However, in this book, perhaps, just maybe, their love will finally come to fruition. We'll have to see. I usually wait a little while before I tell you what song I consider to be their theme, but this one jumped out at me so hard, and it's such a good song with such an incredible music video, I had to go ahead and just share. Chris Isaak, Wicked Game, for the way that Kev feels about Win and how he doesn't want to be in love with her so badly. The song is so good. Chris Isaak is so yummy in the mid-90s. Oh my gosh, if you don't know who I'm talking about, if you've never seen the video for Wicked Game, it's one of the best music videos I've ever seen. I also have that linked below. Feel free to leave this video if you need to go watch it. It's so good. But anyway, back to this. I'm excited to read it this week. I'm going to be at the beach, so it's going to be a kind of a beachy vlog. So I hope you enjoy coming to the beach with me. And I do apologize in advance. I know I'm not going to be really wearing much makeup because it's at the beach, and I'm going to kind of look like a beachy unmade bed. So my apologies in advance. But I'm really excited to read this again and feel the magic. I just remember Kev being, he's rough and gruff, but he has nothing but love for Win. He would do anything for her, and that includes keeping himself from her. And she is frail. She's trying to overcome illness. She wants to love Kev too, but she doesn't know that she can even love anyone considering her condition. The family is all there. It's great to see them. And we've got more wallflowers coming up. We saw a lot of the wallflowers, or at least heard mention of them in the first Hathaway's book. In this one, we've got Simon and Annabelle Hunt that we get to talk to. And they actually have some really important information, and they host a ball. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to reading this all week. There's going to be spoilers after this part, so just to let you know, and I just can't wait to share with you and then explain also how many stars at the very end that I would give this book. So without further ado, let's do it. Let's go to the beach.
We made it. I can't believe it. And I had forgotten how hard this is. It's 50% fun, but 50% work with 3 little ones, even just doing sunscreen and then getting sand out of every crevice. Oh my gosh. Anyway, but we're excited to be here. And now you can hear all the fun sounds of the beach. Anyway, yeah, so I brought my own copy. This is the one that's got Seduce Me at Sunrise and Tempt Me at Twilight, because I was afraid to bring my library book. And right now I just finished chapter 4, and I don't know that I would consider this a great beach read because it's like Bea blubbering at the beach. I'm gonna try not to cry right now, but I have such affection for this family. It really reminds me of Little Women, because except there's also Leo. There's also a boy. It's the 4 gals, and then they've got the guy. But oh my gosh, I mean, the family is kind of eccentric, they're progressive, which reminds me of Little Women, and then of course one of them gets scarlet fever too, which is like Beth. I mean, oh, there's so many parallels to be drawn. But we technically start in the present, but I'm gonna skip that and do that later. I'm gonna focus mostly on the Hathaway's past, which it's funny, when I was talking to somebody online the other day, they were talking about how they like the Wallflowers, but they love the Hathaways, and I thought, Well, it's the wallflowers, though. It's all about the wallflowers because they go into so many books. But honestly, I'm wondering now too if I have such affection for this family. I wonder, not that there has to be a contest, but maybe the Hathaways are just a little bit better than the wallflowers. I don't know. Well, I should say I have more strong feelings for the Hathaways as a family, maybe than the wallflowers as a group. That's probably fair. Anyway, we just see how wonderful and loving this family is, how they love to talk, they love art and reading and philosophy, and Kev is, I think he's roughly 12 years old, and he is raised by his uncle, and he doesn't have any like soft family member to sort of cushion the blows for him. He's just raised by his uncle to be a member of like the warriors of the Romani. And so he's had a very rough life when finally he gets beaten and left for dead by some local landowners who don't want the gypsies on their land. And he's happy to die, except that Mr. Hathaway takes him in, and then Maripen is pretty much ready to leave until he hears Win's voice. He doesn't see her for a very long time, but he hears her, and he feels like his soul is calling to her. It's just so powerful, just the feelings that he feels. And finally he gets to meet her, and he just doesn't want her to leave. He's content to drink tea and just lie there while she reads boring stories to him. And the depths of emotion he feels for her right away, it just makes you want to cry. And over the years, like, they just have such a strong attachment for one another. You know they have an incredible love for one another, and she tries to sort of bring it out of him, but he'll never let it come to pass. And I love this. Normally I don't have a book that I'm physically reading, I'm listening, but I've been reading at the beach, which is so fun. But it says, Kev loved her, not in the way that novelists and poets describe, nothing so tame. He loved her beyond earth, heaven or hell. Every moment out of her company was agony. Every moment with her was the only peace he had ever known. Every touch of her hands was a sensation that ate down to his soul. He would have died before admitting it to anyone. The truth was buried deep in his heart. My gosh, the love. And then, Leo is becoming this great young man. He's studying architecture. He's really making his way in the world. And he's in love with this beautiful girl named Laura Dillard, who he comes back to see all the time. And then, unfortunately, tragedy strikes. Their father has a heart attack suddenly, and their mother passes away 6 months later from a broken heart. And then scarlet fever visits their village, and Laura gets it. And then Leo's devastated, so he spends all of his time with her, and they're concerned Leo's going to get it. And then Win gets scarlet fever. And Maripen actually, when they're alone together, he goes in there and he starts trying to breathe all of the germs in that Win has, because he doesn't want to live without her. It's so strange and yet so beautiful. And she's like, stop, and she can't fight him, but he doesn't want to be in a world without her. And she finally gets him to tell her his given name that only the Romani are supposed to know, Kev. And she keeps it a secret, but she was only willing to take deadly nightshade, which was either going to kill her or cure her, after he told her. Now, Leo also took it. He had collapsed at their home after Laura finally died, and he doesn't want to live. He wants to be with Laura. He wants to die and be with Laura. And he later admits that he's never forgiven Maripen or Kev for helping Leo to live. Leo wanted to die. So it's just so hard and heavy. Not quite the beach read, but that's kind of where we're at. And you just get a sense of Win's been sick, but Maripen has loved her more than life itself, and Win loves him too, but they can't do anything about it. In fact, let me go back to the first chapter now. She is going to go to France with Leo, who's still very broken down. He's still a mess, but he's doing better than he was in Mine Till Midnight, so that's something. But they're hoping, I think everybody's hoping that Leo and Win going to France together is going to help both of them. And Win is going to be meeting with a doctor who's hopefully going to cure her body from the ravages of scarlet fever. And Maripen doesn't want her to go. And she's like, well, if you can convince me not to go, then I won't. Say you love me. And he won't admit it. And then they share an incredibly passionate kiss. And then he's like, no, I don't like you that way. And she knows that he does. And she knows that he knows, and he knows that she knows. And so she's gonna go. And she feels like the incentive now to get well is that she feels like if she recovers, she can finally be with Maripen, which is why she's going. And hopefully Leo can be inspired to feel better as well in going with her. And of course we have Amelia and Cam. Cam is very happily now basically the head of their household. Can you believe that Amelia was willing to let go of the reins so that Cam can take over? Poppy's getting ready to start her first season, which is very exciting. And Beatrix, now 16, is I believe going to school. She's still got all of her animals. In fact, they're hanging out with a squirrel, I believe, that she's raising as a pet, which is just crazy. But yeah, so things have gotten better since the beginning, but yeah. And I have to say, I know I shared with you the song Wicked Game by Chris Isaak, which I wish they had a better quality video that I could share with you in my description box below. You've got to watch it. It's a fabulous song. It's a fabulous video. And it's at the beach too, which is so perfect. It's kind of like all the stars are aligning. It's funny too, because we were at dinner last night at the beach, and there was a version of Wicked Game playing, and I almost never hear that song anymore. And it was at the restaurant, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it was meant to be. This song is Kev and Win's song. Anyway, a girl can dream, can't she? All right, back to the beach. Another day at the beach. It's beautiful again, thank goodness. Please excuse my layers and layers of sunscreen, but like Maripen and Kev, as we're finding out, I am also Irish and will burst into flames if I don't get enough sunscreen. So in chapter 5, we're in present day. The family is now living at the Rutledge, except for, of course, Win and Leo, who are in France. And Win keeps sending letters to Kev, but he keeps not answering them, except for one, which was mostly about farming, because he just feels like he can't really reciprocate any of the feelings she's trying to impart in her letters. So that's kind of where we're at. Poppy's starting her season, Amelia, and I mean, they're very happy in the Rutledge. If you remember, the Rutledge is owned by Harry Rutledge, who is actually a friend of Marcus, Earl of Westcliff. So that's kind of a cool connection. So chapter 6, London, 1851 in the spring. Leo, it's been 2.5 years, and Leo and Win are just arriving from the ship. And Win is the picture of health for the most part, I think. I think she's doing really great. She actually has her doctor, Dr. Julian Harrow, who has come along with her. And it seems like he might have some feelings for her, which is kind of interesting. Leo is looking much better, but you know, he's still not the same happy-go-lucky, carefree guy that he used to be. And Beatrix has been kicked out of school for her occasional issues with her pets and her pilfering of items. So they've decided to hire a governess, Miss Catherine Marks, and I am already so excited about that. She and Leo are not on good terms. They seem to hate everything about the other person. He doesn't like how stuck up and straight-laced she is, and she is not fond of how much of a rogue and scoundrel he is. She can't stand those types of people. So they actually meet for the first time when she is running through the Rutledge after Dodger, who is Beatrix's ferret, and Dodger has one of Catherine's lace garters in his mouth, and so she's trying to catch it. And yeah, so Catherine and Leo are not off to a great start. But Win is doing well. She, of course, wants to know everything about Kev. He is staying on another floor than the rest of the family, and Amelia lets him know where that is. And then Win goes up in the middle of the night to see him because she can't wait to see him anymore. And this is where it gets insane, and I was also like a little disappointed. So she goes up to his room, and she has a cloak over her face. He doesn't know who she is, and he says, "I didn't send for a woman tonight." It's like, oh man, so he's sending for women. I mean, okay, but it's sort of a disappointment. And Win was certainly surprised, and she doesn't let him know who she is as he explains he's a Rom because he doesn't want her to be upset by that. It's just so sad that he feels the need to say that because Roms are so poorly looked at in society, but he does let her know, which I thought was interestingly admirable. And he was very careful with her, but he starts to put the moves on her, and she finally says, and it was getting really hot and steamy and crazy. And the first time I read this, I was reading it going, what is going to happen? I have no idea what's going to happen. As he starts to undress her, he does not see her face. I'm like, what is going to happen? And then she says, is this how you treat all the women that you're with? Something to that effect. And then he realizes who she is, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then I guess because the passion was already starting to build in him, and seeing her for the first time and the way that they were both sort of heavily breathing, then they start to have quite an intimate moment until he rips himself away from her, and he's like, I can't do this, I can't do this. Which of course is, she's frustrated, he's upset with himself because he just doesn't feel like he can be with her, and we'll find out more why later on. So Kev, even though he knows he's not gonna have Win, he doesn't want anyone else to have her either, and he just about beats Julian Harrow the first time he meets him because Win is wearing Turkish trousers. She's wearing an exercise costume, but it looks like underwear, and Dr. Harrow is over her, touching her, and Kev sees it, and Leo and Cam have to come and restrain him from beating Dr. Harrow to a pulp. And it's kind of frustrating because Kev is very possessive. Is this like if you like the tropes of possessive hero, or I think this is also grumpy sunshine, because man, this guy's grumpy. You'll certainly like this because that's where we're headed. But anyway, Win is very frustrated. Kev is extremely frustrated. We'll just see what happens. But yeah, Kev doesn't want her anywhere near Dr. Harrow. Now, as a diversion, Cam decides to take Kev with him to No Man's Land. Cam's been searching about their family, trying to figure out what the puka tattoos that both of them have on their bodies, what they mean. They know they're Irish, but they don't really understand where they're from or why they were released from their tribes and why they grew up the way that they did. So Cam's been looking, he's been searching, and so he decides to take Kev with him to No Man's Land so they can get some answers and find out what is the deal with both of their backstories. Yay for more fun in the sun. This is so great. We're having a great time. But like I said, this is a lot of work. Especially with young kids. And we're all in one room. So we're trying to get as much sleep as we can. But it's hard because the first person that wakes up it's always wants somebody before dawn. They cannot help but wake everybody else up. But we'll figure this out by the time it's time to leave. What are you going to do, right? Anyway, so back to the book. We started back with chapter 10. Kev and Cam are in No Man's Land, and they find a girl that grew up with Kev. Now, remember, Kev was with his uncle until he was 12, whereas Cam was with his grandmother until he was about 8. And remember, Cam was left in a gaming club to work at about 8 with Ivo Jenner, and Kev was with his uncle becoming a warrior for the Romani tribe. So, they find out, though, guess what? They are brothers. And they have an Irish father, but they don't know anything beyond that. But they figure that they must have been in danger from their father, and that he was probably somebody for them to be separated and then for them to be abandoned. Something is definitely up. And Kev doesn't really want to acknowledge it, but Cam does. They decide to go get drinks after that. And that's when we find out more about just how Cam is really excited, but Kev just wants to sort of keep everything at bay. Now, moving ahead to the following day, Win wants to go for a walk in the park, and Kev, again, super possessive as always, he does not want her to go without him, so he takes her, and they end up at the Crystal Palace, and this is such a beautiful scene. They are going into, there's like all these new inventions, and there's a pillow stuffing machine that goes awry, and there's feathers everywhere, and it honestly kind of reminds me of that scene in Scandal in Spring with the duck feathers with Daisy and Matthew. But now here we have pillow stuffing, and we've got Kev and Win, but they're in between
tapestries and carpets, and so they're sort of hidden away, and she's pulling the feathers out of his gorgeous, thick, black sable locks. And before you know it, of course, they're kissing and kissing, and then he says, oh my gosh, it just about kills me. He says, I have nothing to offer you. It's just showing what he's feeling, which he just doesn't feel like he's good enough for her. He's not going to be able to help her. It just breaks your heart because you know he loves her so much, and he says, like, I'm tortured by my love for you. And it's very frustrating. But Win's like, I want to be loved as a woman. I don't want to be loved as a sister. We also find out from Dr. Harrow that he is interested in marrying Win, but he doesn't believe she could ever bear children. So it seems like what he wants to do is just have a chaste marriage and see other women, and just to protect her from ever potentially bearing children. And of course, Kev is not going to go for this, although he feels like it would be better for Win to marry him and live than to marry Kev and die. And Cam says, well, there's preventative measures that you could take so she wouldn't get pregnant. And Kev says, well, all the good that did you. And the reason he says that is because we find out at dinner that Amelia is pregnant. Well, we didn't find out at dinner. She started feeling sick at dinner, and then Dr. Harrow takes her and does an examination and discovers Amelia's pregnant. And Cam is so excited, and he wants to spoil her for the next 9 months. And does that not sound like the best thing ever? I would love that. I would love that. So anyway, we fast forward to the ball. We are at Simon Hunt's house. Now, I have to apologize. There was another video where I was talking about how Annabelle is a blonde. I really, truly thought Annabelle Hunt was a blonde, but apparently they said she had honey brown hair in this. So I guess that step back from Secrets of a Summer Night is accurate. So, oopsie, sorry. I really thought Annabelle was blonde. Anyway, it was really great to go to their private home for a beautiful ball and see Simon and Annabelle. And I love how Annabelle asked Simon to dance, because as you may remember from Secrets of a Summer Night, he always wanted to dance with her and she never did. And now they dance together all the time, even though it's apparently scandalous. I just love that. And anyway, so Dr. Harrow takes Win off so that he can start talking to her, and he's explaining that he wants more than just a friendship, which she already knows. But then guess who comes and ruins everything is Kev, being possessive and grumpy as always. And he pulls her aside, and then she just says, I don't think you're going to be capable of loving me the way that I want to be loved. And well, that was a challenge. So he marches through that moonlight and has at it, and they have quite a tryst. It doesn't go all that far, but it's enough for her to be compromised. And as she is finishing, we are at chapter end of 13, she finds out that she has started a scandal. And people are talking. Even though it's been 30 minutes since they were kissing and caressing, she is in trouble, in social trouble, as is the rest of the family. So they got to figure something out. So we'll find out what happens beginning in chapter 14. And now back to the beach. First crummier weather day. It's still nice, it's low 80s, but there's some rain, so most people are kind of hanging out inside for a little bit, and I came back out on the porch just to record a little bit more from this book, which I've been reading. So as we left off, I mentioned Win and Kev had just gotten into a compromising position, but nobody knows who the gentleman was. They only saw Win in all of her glory, and they go into Simon Hunt's library to talk about what they're gonna do. And who comes forward to say that he was the one that compromised Win? Not Kev. He was about to, maybe, but Dr. Harrow, which was totally a shock. Dr. Harrow comes forward and says that he wants to marry Win, and she really doesn't have any choice if she wants to protect her family from ruin. So she says yes, and Kev does nothing. And then Cam talks to him later and says, what are you doing? And I think Kev just feels like because he was raised a warrior, that he's this broken person, and plus he's terrified that he is going to get her pregnant. And she does tell him that she goes to another doctor in town, who says she's perfectly safe to get pregnant. So
as I remember, that may not be true, but we will read on and find out. Another extremely critical thing that happens in this part of the book between chapters 14 and 18 is that Kev speaks to Simon Hunt, who has some back knowledge on Dr. Harrow, and says that Dr. Harrow, it's believed that he actually killed his first wife, that she came to him vibrant and thriving and was dead within 2 years, and they believe that Dr. Harrow did it and then took all of that money and moved to France. So Kev is chilled to the bone over that, and he tries to tell Win, and she's like, I can't believe you would stoop so low. The family is pretty much done at the Rutledge because the Ramsey house is getting back on its feet. They're ready to go back to Hampshire, and it is gorgeous. The house is better than ever. They've carefully, lovingly saved some of the original parts of the home, but they've added a lot more, and the land is so beautiful, and it's just so exciting to see them coming back to the Ramsey house and it being better than ever before. It's probably no Stony Cross Park, but it seems just like heaven. And not long after, they're having dinner, and Leo finds out that Kev is locked up. He has gotten himself into trouble in the town. I guess he was drunk and got into a fight, and Leo goes to talk some sense into him and basically says, what are you doing? You know, if I could be with Laura Dillard, who passed away, who I wanted to be with, I would do that. And you have Win, and you won't just get yourself together and take her. And it was really hard on Leo being that open about his own brokenness, but he really needed Kev to understand the importance of seizing the day and overcoming any obstacles to be with the one that you love if you can. And so with Leo's money to get him out of jail, and Leo says, I need a running start, so wait a few minutes before you let him out. Kev decides to go to Win in the middle of the night, and he gags her and ties her up and throws her over his shoulder and takes her to a cottage in the woods nearby, where they proceed to finally, after years and years and years, they unleash their passions for one another, and it's beautiful. However, for me, I'm not as excited about the fact that he basically kidnapped her, but apparently that's part of the Romany culture, to sort of kidnap your bride-to-be and take her away, and I guess it's like 50% adorable and 50% what? So anyway, but Win was crying happy tears when he threw her over his shoulder, because she's like, finally. So they are very, very happy at the end of chapter 17. And I have to say, I love how towards the end of their time, their special intimate time, he calls out her name, and Lisa Kleypas says, she writes that he says that when he says her name, it was a single syllable contained the faith and passion of 1,000 prayers. Oh, she's such a good writer that she could make one syllable mean that much. But you realize that's what Kev feels for Win. I just finished the book, and it was so good. And marvel as I continue to look like an unmade bed. I apologize, but we are on vacation, and there's a lot of swimming involved, so there's no reason to put makeup on in between. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with me this long if you've made it. Anyway, oh, by the way, so the video you just saw, I went to a really fun used bookstore, and I got some great books, and the woman that owns the store totally understood my Hathaway's shirt and even laughed at having Dodger on the bottom, and I was like, somebody gets it, yay! But anyway, back to the book. So Win and Kev are at this little cottage in the middle of the woods, and they have quite a few love scenes. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because Kev is more like a rough and tough guy, but I think that lends itself to some more graphic, passionate, potent
love scenes than I'm used to with Lisa Kleypas. It was just very interesting. I guess it's good that there's different flavors of romance love scenes in her different books. And I can't remember the last time I read scenes this passionate. Maybe in Again the Magic? But yeah, I mean, Kev can bring it. So there you have it. Win starts to get really nervous about them going back to the Ramsey house, and he's not really sure why until they finally do go back, and Kev has a conversation with Dr. Harrow. Dr. Harrow has been complaining about the fact that basically his property has been taken from him and he wants to take Win away, and he totally treats Kev like low class, which is so frustrating. But he explains to Kev that Win was lying to him and never was seen by a doctor in London who said that she could conceive and carry out a pregnancy and deliver safely. And so Kev feels just totally blown by this. He was trusting Win with all of his secrets, and she had lied to him at about the same time, and that their new relationship is now based on a lie, and he can't live with himself if it might kill her. If, him being with her, they maybe get pregnant, and then if she passes away because of it, he wouldn't be able to make it. So he becomes furious with her, and Dr. Harrow is saying he's gonna leave for London unless Win comes to her senses and goes with him. And Cam talks to Kev, trying to talk sense into him before going to a Romany encampment, which is on their land. And as he's heading out to the field, his heart starts racing, and he doesn't know what it is, but he realizes that he's dying. And, fast forward a bit, we go back to the Ramsey house, and Kev and Leo are talking. I love this, by the way. They're talking about Catherine Marks, who Leo seems more and more preoccupied by, and he's not really sure how he feels about her. He's intrigued by her, but he doesn't like her, and he really wants to bother her. But you can see over time, I think he's attracted to her. Leo and Kev are talking while they're working on the house, and all of a sudden this little Romany boy comes up and says, there's a Rom and dressed in Gadget clothes who is dying, you need to come help. And they realize it's Cam. Well, long story short, too late. They figure out that Dr. Harrow poisoned Kev's coffee, probably the same way he poisoned his first wife. And he didn't realize that Cam was going to drink the coffee instead. So here's Cam dying, and thankfully, through some fancy footwork of both the tribe that's visiting, and then through Win, who Leo and Win and Catherine, they fight Dr. Harrow together and lock him in a bureau, and then Win sets fire to it to try to get him to tell them what the antidote is, which is insane. But yeah, I couldn't believe it. So they get the antidote, they save Cam, and through all of this, Kev is realizing just how short and precious life is, and that there's no guarantees, but all you can do is love while you're here and love deeply. And so Kev decides to be with Win, and they are going to get married, but of course there's the Hathaway Wedding coming up, which is a novella, separate entity, but they're having a Romany celebration, a wedding celebration, when all of a sudden the actual biological grandfather, the Irish grandfather of Kev and Cam, shows up, and he lets them know that their dad has just passed away. He's going to inherit this earldom, this title over in Ireland and all this land. And this guy's terrible. The grandfather's awful. But Cam's like, well, he's not going to live long. So Kev decides that he is going to inherit the title. He's going to take Win with him some of the time, and they'll live in England some of the time. But they're just blissfully happy. And then the epilogue, it just made me cry, where they talked about how Win had such a beautiful pregnancy and the delivery was safe, although Kev was so nervous about it. And they have a healthy boy. They talk about all the different names that they're going to give him because he's half Romany, or I guess a quarter Romany, really. But I just love it. And they said, there is heart here, which is a Romany phrase, and I got so teary. So I really enjoyed this book. I will say though, for me, Kev's not my super favorite. I love reading different heroes, don't get me wrong, but anybody that uses words like scowling or snarling or predatory steps, like those types of things don't tend to do it for me quite as much. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this 4 stars.
but I really, really, really enjoyed it. And I'm so happy that Win and Kev are so happy. And now I'm going to read A Hathaway Wedding. I just finished A Hathaway Wedding, which is linked below if you want to read it online. It's not even a link to a book or something. It's actually, the book is online. And it's only 10 internet pages, whatever that is. I found it to be bananas. It was bonkers, any word like that. I could not believe it. Win and Kev are going to get married, but everything is going wrong. They wind up getting married in a place that you would never expect. It's very crazy. And meanwhile, Beatrix, they're talking a lot about Beatrix. She and Poppy have had 2 seasons in London to no avail. And it's interesting, Poppy's desperate to find someone and no one seems interested. Whereas Beatrix has had plenty of interest, but she doesn't have interest back. She wants to be with someone who's going to be more interesting than the timid people that she keeps meeting in the town. So she's far more interested in animals, and in this story she captures and helps not captures, but she helps a wounded owl. But it gets especially crazy when she finds out there's a traveling show, like a circus sort of, but it's more like just to look at animals. And I'm not going to go too into it. I have a big issue with animal cruelty or mistreatment of animals. Like, I can't watch anything or read anything where the animal with any suffering, I just cannot even do it. Can't do it. And there is some of that in this book. Of course, Beatrix sets things right, and one of the animals winds up in the wedding, and it's kind of insane and hilarious. So I don't want to give anything away, because especially if you can just click on something. Whoa. Anyway, if you can just click on it and read it, why would you want me to tell you? It's crazy. But yeah, I did enjoy this. I thought it was a neat little novella. I would only, though, give it probably 3 stars, which is a low rating for me for Lisa Kleypas, but I think it's just harder for me to enjoy because of the animal issues in it, and then it was just very crazy. And of course, short. And I tend to rate things that are shorter lower, which I don't know why. Anyway, so yeah, but I did enjoy it, but yeah, just 3 stars, I think, for me. But it was fun to read, and I'm glad that I did. Thanks for hanging out with me this long. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're enjoying whatever it is that you are reading. Until next time, thanks so much. Take care. Bye.